All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Kaiah Sotebeer, and today I'll be presenting with my co-presenter, Amelia Mindthoff. And today we will be discussing our recent meta-analysis outlining the efficacy of baselining approaches for detecting deception. All right, so as many of us on this call know, much of the deception detection literature has suggested that lay people and practitioners are generally poor at deception detection and rarely perform above chance. However, baselining as a technique attempts to improve deception detection by comparing statements of interest to an established baseline of their interviewee's truthfulness. Baselining is conducted by comparing verbal and nonverbal behaviors that may indicate the interviewee's veracity. However, there is some lack of consistency in the baselining literature, with some studies suggesting that there's an effective baselining, whereas others do not find this effect. There's also some debate in regards to what types of baselining are more effective. The two most commonly investigated types of baselining are the comparable truth baseline versus small talk baselining. Comparable truth baselining focuses on the perceiver comparing the statements topically related to one another to a statement of interest, whereas the small talk baselining involves perceivers comparing a rapport-based baseline versus a statement of interest. The aim of our current research study was to evaluate the state of the literature to investigate if baselining is an effective method for deception detection. We also were curious in which method of baselining, comparable truth baselining versus small talk, would potentially be most effective for detecting deception. To identify studies of interest, we went through the identification and screening phases, and we searched records from databases including PsycInfo, criminal justice abstracts, communication abstracts, dissertations and theses, as well as other sources. We removed 56 duplicate records before screening, and that resulted in 775 records screened. 732 records were excluded, leaving 43 records assessed for eligibility in the present review. From that full text screening, 34 records were excluded, and 4 other records were included from other sources, leaving 13 studies included in our final review. Our inclusion criteria included that the studies that were involved in our baselining meta-analysis must be confined to the investigative interviewing context. Additionally, studies could have either a controlled experimental design or a systematic observational design. Also, studies must contain a ground truth for veracity or other focal constructs such as anxiety or discomfort. For our characteristics of included studies, we only included studies with perceivers reporting their perceptions of truthfulness or deception across studies. Our average age of our sample was 26.49, and we had 1,567 participants in total included in the meta-analysis. 12 of these studies included students and adults as deception detection judges, and 1 study included practitioners as deception detection judges. 7 of the included studies used a comparable truth baseline, whereas 6 of them used the small talk baseline. In terms of methodology, 4 of the included studies used a within subjects design, and 9 included between subjects design. All right, I'll now move on to Amelia for the results.
So what did we find? We found via a random effects model that baselining improved overall accuracy in terms of deception detection. And we coded overall accuracy that included both truth and lie, detection of both truth and lies in terms of overall accuracy. And just to contextualize this finding, we found a Hedges G effect size of 0.31. So that's about a small to medium effect size, which is pretty decent. So according to this specific forest plot, we see that baselining does significantly improve overall accuracy in terms of deception detection. But we were interested in understanding kind of what drove this increase in overall accuracy. Was it because judges were very good at detecting lies or detecting truths or both? So we split apart lies and truths. So for judges' accuracy in detecting lies, we did find a significant effect of baselining, wherein baselining improved judges' abilities to accurately detect lies. And again, this effect size was small to medium. But when it came to truths, there was no significant effect of baselining. So individuals were not that great at finding accurately detecting truths in the context of baselining. And this kind of led us into wanting to conduct some signal detection analyses on this. We wanted to estimate signal detection parameters so we could determine whether the overall accuracy effect we were finding in the context of baselining was due to discriminability or a shift in response criterion. So we estimated signal detection parameters wherein lies were set to be our signal and noise was set as truth. And what we found was that there was no significant effect of baselining on discriminability. However, there was a pretty strong effect of baselining in terms of response criterion, wherein baselining led to a more liberal criterion. Specifically, judges were more likely to respond lie. And so what we see is that both our random effects analyses and the signal detection analyses show that overall accuracy effect that we are seeing with baselining is really driven by this proclivity for judges to say that the individual is lying within the context of the baseline technique being used. We also conducted a moderator analysis to see how the use of the comparable truth technique versus the small talk technique affected overall accuracy. And our moderator analysis was significant. There was a difference in terms of the type of baselining used in regards to overall accuracy. And I just want to let you know that these forest plots, we're not looking at signal detection here because our samples were too small in terms of the moderator analyses. So this is just a random effects model moderator analyses. What we saw was that when the comparable truth technique was used, baselining had no significant effect on overall accuracy in terms of deception detection. However, when the small talk technique was used, we saw a pretty big effect of baselining in terms of overall accuracy. So small talk technique baselining increased overall accuracy in terms of deception detection. But I do want to note that these samples are very small, and that is something that we definitely would like to see more of in the literature so that, if we had more of a robust sample, we could conduct a signal detection analysis on this and see whether this is kind of due to discriminability or to overall, discriminability or response criterion shifts. That being said, a lot of our studies include small talk technique, and since small talk technique does lead to improved accuracy, we can kind of infer that potentially the small talk technique is kind of driving the accuracy effects that we're seeing. But the samples are just a little too small to make any solid conclusions on what's more beneficial, the small talk technique or the comparable truth technique. So to wrap it up, baselining improves overall accuracy, but this is really just driven by our observation that judges are more inclined to judge an individual as a liar. They have that increased proclivity to say liar. And we see no effect at all on baselining. And if anything, it kind of reversed backwards, where in baselining kind of decreased accuracy. If you notice, the effect size was negative in that forest plot. And our signal detection analyses suggest that improvement in overall accuracy and in lies is potentially due to this like liberal shift in response criterion. It's due to that proclivity to say liar, and it's not necessarily due to an improvement in discriminability of whether the individual is of whether a lie is present or absent. And again, I just want to say this is all based on only 13 studies. The baselining literature is pretty small. And there's also a big time gap between studies within the literature. A lot of the studies happened in the 80s, and then there were a few studies that happened within the last like 3-4 years. So it's kind of scattered in that sense in terms of methodology and labs conducting studies and such. So in general, there just needs to be more research conducted within baselining before any solid recommendations are kind of offered to law enforcement in terms of the use of baselining.
Thank you, everyone.